Right, we're on. Right, welcome back to Process the Podcast. Today we are joined by another guest. We've got Andrew Goodlad, all the way from the Shetland Islands, out in the middle of nowhere. Thanks for coming on, mate.
Thanks for having me on.
No worries. So, in fact, I'll let you introduce yourself, kind of what you do, what you're doing at the minute, obviously during lockdown and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I'm Andrew, I'm 22, and as you said, I'm from a place called Shetland, so it's like a group of islands, like right in the north of Scotland, so middle of nowhere really. And basically I do like online coaching and one-to-one personal training, but I'm quite new to it, so as you know, it takes quite a while to like build these sort of things up, so it's just a case of trying to get a bit of momentum with that, but enjoying it so far, so that's kind of what I've been doing since I finished uni. So
yeah. So we'll touch on uni and stuff like that in a bit, but it's weird, we were talking just before the podcast, it's weird kind of meeting someone that you've never met before. Like, we've literally spoke on Instagram, I think it was a few months ago. Obviously, I followed you because you're very much bodybuilding related and stuff, and then obviously chatting face. I know, it's crazy. But so we'll talk a little about your kind of journey to, obviously, you mentioned that you went to uni there, now you're at the Shetland Islands. I'm guessing that's where your family's from originally.
Yeah, I've lived here all my life, apart from going to uni. So
yeah, so obviously getting into bodybuilding, starting, say, from school, where did the kind of interest into bodybuilding kind of come from?
Yeah. So before I went to uni, I was never really like into the gym. Like, probably went like a handful of times. Very similar to you, always just like football like the whole time. Yeah. You know, like 5-6 times a week. Goalkeepers Union. So was a fellow.
I was going to mention that.
And then finished high school and then went down to study at a university in Edinburgh to do biology. And then obviously, since I was so into football, it was the case, obviously, like, right, let's join the football team. But in order to join the football team, you had to buy a year's gym membership at the university gym for some reason. So since I paid for a whole year, I was like, right, well, I might as well start kind of like using it a little bit. But like, I went like a few times a week here and there during my first year at uni, but never really like, you know what I mean? I had no idea what I was doing. Just literally like going a couple of times, didn't warm up, hopped around all the machines. Pretty sure I had a day when I just did like abs or something, you know what I mean? Didn't have a clue what I was doing. I don't even count that as training. But basically, as the year at uni went on, kind of stopped enjoying playing football as much. So I kind of decided coming to the end of that year that I was going to like take a year or a season out of football. Because I phoned my managers at home to say that I'd be taking the season out, because obviously like normally like a normal season, you know, you go all through the year and you have summer off. But since our weather is that shit up here, we cram all our season into a couple months in summer. So it's like reverse. So I've done like the whole normal season at uni, then you're coming home for a few months as you do for summer, and then I'm coming straight into the football season at home. Yeah. So I was like, nah, I don't want to do it. So I was like, I'm going to take a bit of time off. So what did I say? Yeah. So I phoned the manager, said I'm not going to play. So I like to stay active. So I knew if I wasn't going to play football, I'd want to like do some form of like exercise. So that's kind of one of the like small reasons why I decided, right, if I'm not going to play football during this summer, I'll try like get into the gym a little bit more. But probably like the main reason why I actually started like getting into training was like during my first year at uni, I actually ended up like losing a lot of weight. So I didn't really like mean to like do it, but essentially like I hate that kind of term, but like I got like a really like unhealthy relationship with food. Like I got like a really weird mindset, and that like I wasn't trying to lose weight or anything. It wasn't like for the gym or football or anything. I just got this like weird mindset of, like I wouldn't eat anything like quote unquote like unhealthy, or like I wouldn't have any, like I was almost like scared to put like dietary fat into my diet essentially. So like obviously like my calories were like a lot lower, just kind of indirectly from that.
Can you remember how much you weighed? Sorry, mate. Do you remember how much you weighed?
So like when I finished first year at uni, so just before I turned 19, I weighed 130 pounds at 6'3". So
what's the that in kilograms? I'm terrible at kilograms.
162.
Yeah, something like that. That's mental. That.
Yeah. So like that kind of when that was happening, I was having like issues with my stomach at the same time. So like I was having like a dull pain in my stomach, so I didn't really have an appetite. So like at that period of time, I wasn't tracking like nutrition or something. So when you're not tracking or have like any like numbers to hit, what do? Like you eat intuitively, so you eat when you feel hungry. if I wasn't feeling hungry, and then I was already kind of like restricting in certain aspects, it meant like I was going like a lot of the day without eating because I wasn't hungry with my stomach. So that kind of ended up just like losing a lot of weight. And then like when you come home, like, you know, when you come home from uni, well, you didn't go to uni, did you?
I didn't do it. Skip
like
that, mate.
When you come home, like everyone comes back to Shetland, and then obviously like you all go on nights out and stuff like that. You've not seen people in a few months, and then I had a few people say to me on a night out, like, "Oh, you know, you're looking a bit ill. You need to eat food, etc." But like, I don't take things to heart. So like, the people who said it to me, like, it doesn't bother me. Like, their opinions don't mean shit. But it kind of made you think, like, right, if other people are kind of pointing out to you, maybe you need to start kind of like doing something about it. So I'd say that's kind of when I got started, when I was around 19, about 130 pounds. So that was
that's first year. I just agree. It's like 59 kilograms for anybody who doesn't do pounds, because I'm terrible at pounds. Yeah, that's crazy.
Just like looked like a child at like 19. So that's kind of like where I consider starting, was that summer, trying to like start getting into it. So that's kind of how I got into the whole bodybuilding thing. Like.
Yeah, so kind of from that, so what was your training like when you first actually started getting a bit of knowledge? So like you said, you mentioned it was kind of just hopping around machines. So you were about, what, 18, 19 or something? Yeah. Well, how old were you? Was it 18 years old probably when you just kind of started training, but not properly?
Yeah, like, so when you go down to uni in Scotland, I don't know what it's like in England, but you're usually around 17, 18. So 18 then, and when I finished first year, I was still 18, just about to turn 19. So I did what any young guy does who's wanting to build muscle and doesn't have a clue. Hop straight on bodybuilding.com.
Yeah.
Get a program. It was like Jim Stepani's Shortcut to Size or something.
I remember that one, yeah.
12 weeks, bro split, most basic undulating periodization you'll ever see. But it's obviously not the most ideal way to start, but it gets you into training and gets you into like, because it actually hit you like logbooking straight from there. So like right from the start, you're looking at like progressing lifts. And then once I kind of got into watching, because I never had like Instagram at this point. I only got Instagram when I was like 20, 21 or something. So it kind of like, once I started like figuring out like fitness YouTube was a thing, I didn't even know it existed. Started getting into watching more kind of informative people. Like thankfully I kind of stumbled across more informative people like at the start, as opposed to like Athlean X and all that kind of bollocks. Like I got into things like you know, like TM Cycles, you follow him, Josh Bridgman. They were like, and AJ Morris were like three of the first people I kind of stumbled across, and I saw them kind of talking about the higher frequency kind of approach to training. So that's kind of how it kind of developed over time from there. So
I was gonna say, because when I first started, the people that I looked up to and stuff and watched were like Mike Rashid and stuff. So it was very much overtraining. So I was probably, when I first started like looking into training stuff, I was probably like 18, 19. It was literally just volume. And then on top of that, I was playing football full time at the same time. So I was just killing myself. I wasn't getting anywhere. I put on some size. So I was probably, when I was about, I remember 17, I think I was about 6'3". I'm 6'5" and a bit now. And I was about 72 kilograms. So I managed to put like a bit of weight on from then. But obviously you get to a point and I was training too much and it kills you. But you were lucky that you actually had some decent influences.
Well, I did, but that's the thing when you're on about volume. Like when I first heard about push-pull legs, I was like, all right, sweet. Right, push-pull legs, 6 days in a row, 1 day off. And just like ridiculous amount of volume in each session, you know, like 50 sets or something, like not knowing how to like structure it. And then it is like, obviously like the whole like overtraining thing, but you were definitely doing far too much to see like proper like results. And then just gradually over time, like watching more videos, like when you get Instagram, follow people, then you kind of realize, right, this is kind of how you like structure a push-pull leg session kind of thing. So the first couple of years when you start, like you say like, oh yeah, I started training at 19, but the first couple of years they're never productive really.
Yeah,
you don't really know what you're doing, do you?
Unless you get like that's why I say to people, like one little bit of advice that I would give people who are just kind of starting training is get a coach, because they help you so much. Like just think the amount of years that like me and you have wasted, well I say wasted, like learning the proper process of training and obviously programming and what have you. If you get a coach straight away, you're literally bypassing 2 years of your lifting career and you're going straight to like the point where at, and then you can obviously just learn from there and you learn more things. So yeah, it's a bit of advice for anybody just starting out who's a newbie to training.
Like, it's one of them things that when you get into lifting, like you don't, you know, I mean, no one really wants to spend money on a coach or a PT. They think, you know, you kind of think you know all, but like you said, like you're not. you're still making progress, like, since you're new to the gym, you know, you can do really anything and you'll make progress. But you are still, like, it's not optimal, and you are kind of wasting your time. You're probably wasting a lot of money on, like, pointless supplements during that time as well. So I would just say, like, if you're new, just hire a coach. You know what I mean?
100%.
It will give you a benefit. Like,
can you think of any, like, just off the top of your head, any stupid things? Like, I'll give an example. I remember what I used to do was, well, obviously I used to do chest day, back day,
classic.
all that. Obviously, used to go through, all through that. But I remember at one point, I think I was doing, because I was full-time football, I wasn't training legs. I was going push, pull, push, pull, push, pull, literally with no rest days in between. But I remember I literally used to get the BCAA capsules. I used to have 6 of them before I would train. Then go and train. And as soon as I don't know, I just thought it was going to help us, like,
energy.
Yeah, energy tablets. Like, there's so many stupid things. I used to always slam a shake, literally straight from the gym into the change room, slam a shake as soon as possible, and then just. Can you think of anything that you used to do? Probably similar sort of things.
Because when I did first start training, when I moved back down to uni for the second year, first gym I trained at was Pure Gym, so it's never that good. But I remember doing the same thing as you in the locker room, like in the locker straight after I finished training. Already had a protein and, like, I think it was like maltodextrin shake mixed up, like absolute horrendous on the stomach. But as soon as you finish training, boom, straight in there, neck that. I'm trying to think of any, like, stupid kind of things. Just, like, I think when I first got into it, I was really bad for, like, eating all, like, the high protein, like, snacks and things you'd see on my protein app. I thought, you know, you get fucking massive eating them. And that, and then, like, all, like, what do you call it? Like the testosterone boosting tablets.
Did you try them? I was always too scared to try them. I was like, nah, steroids.
What is it like? Is it tribulus terrestris or something like that?
I haven't got a clue, mate. I never touched.
Waste 30 quid. Like,
honestly, I know the amount of people that have messaged me and stuff saying, "Oh, these like fat burners, these test boosters and stuff," and he couldn't. It was just, luckily, I wasn't. Well, we used to get drug tested when I played football, so I didn't want to go down like touch anything just in case. I was like, I know. Protein was enough. Like creatine, that was a big thing. That was like steroids when you first started creatine.
Classic, like.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of other things off the top of my head.
BCAAs are always a classic. I only bought them once, thankfully. I never really think it was more like the uni budget and the price of them kind of put me off. So.
Yeah, I know. Just like literally eating stupid things. But yeah, so talking about that, when did your training slowly start to change? Was it like you said you started following different people, or did you get a coach at a certain point? Or
I did all of it by myself. I only got a coach a few months ago when I was going to go into a first prep, but we'll cover that later, like you said. But like, I wouldn't say there was like a point where like it just changed. It was just kind of like gradually, like say you'd start listening to podcasts, watching videos, and you'd hear like a certain little thing about training, you're like changing something. Then I changed that, but then the rest of it would still be shit. And then you hear like another thing, oh, that sounds good, you change that, and then it gradually just kind of like the volume would come down. Then I started like maybe like it was only like a year and a half ago maybe that I stopped training like 6 days in a row, started taking that 2-3 rest days a week in between. Like now looking back on it, like I could not physically, like I couldn't train more than 3 days on the bounce. I don't know how. It just shows that you're not training hard enough and you're just doing a bunch of like junk volume if you're managing to train like 6 days on the spin. So then the kind of extra rest came into it, and then as you say, just like following certain people, learning, coming across the whole, like I always did like straight sets, you know, like say like 3x5 or something like that. But then I kind of came across the whole top and back offset approach, and ever since I kind of came across that, that's been my like preferred approach for like compound work, and then doing more kind of straight sets on like isolations and things like that. Gives you like the kind of best of both worlds in a way, in that you're still working in that lower rep range. So with higher loads, that you're still hitting things like in like a 5-6 rep range, but you're not doing like 4 sets of it. You know, you're just doing it once, leave all of it in that one set, and then do a back offset. So getting stronger across multiple rep ranges. So that's kind of like my preferred approach to training.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that as well, because I feel that that's quite, especially mainly in the bodybuilding world, that's quite like that. They call it the high intensity approach. It's becoming a lot more popular. Like when I first started bodybuilding, it was only like bodybuilding 3 or 4 years ago. Okay. When I first started training, it was very much like higher volume, like 4 or 5 sets at least, like a few, like maybe like a 5x5 bench to start, and then you'd go on to like incline. Yeah, just like it's how trains change kind of thing. The high intensity approach. I think people like train by JPs.
Yeah, that's definitely what kicked it all off.
Yeah, 100%. Like people like that, and then I forgot his name now. He old bodybuilder. Dorian Yates. That's the one off the top of my head. He was the one who he was big on it back in the day, but then. Like the likes of like Arnold's have you seen Arnold's program that was put out?
It's mental volume. It's like ridiculous.
Like 40 sets per session or something. But like that was what it used to be back in the day. There's loads and loads of volume, not a lot of rest period. That's another thing to touch on. Like what's your rest periods at the minute? Are they shorter or a bit longer now?
A lot.
Long.
It depends where I'm at. But like when I'm like at the end of like a gaining phase or a bulk, whatever you call it, like the old cardiovascular fitness isn't where you want it to be. Like the rest times are pretty long. I don't really time them. Like I kind of do sometimes. It's like a rough guide, but I always just kind of go when I'm ready. But probably for like a top set, I'm looking at anywhere from like 4 to 5 minutes rest between going from a top set to a back off set. And then all the isolation stuff, I keep it, like 1-2 minutes. But all my compound work, it is definitely a lot longer. Like especially if like you've only got, say you've got one set of 5 to 9 and one set of 10 to 15. You've only got like those 2 sets to like go and take like a progression. So I'm not going to go and like fuck up by taking, it's been a minute and a half, I need to go do my back off set now. Like if I've done like an all out like 4 or 5 repper on like a deadlift, I'm probably going to take like 5-6 minutes before I go into my back off set, just because I'm that like knackered from it. So
I was going to say, I think a lot of people probably when they listen to that, they're thinking, like I swear, like the optimal range was like 90-second rest tops, if that. Like that's what it used to be like back when I first started training, like 2 minutes top. But like there's more research coming out, and especially if you're doing like a higher intense approach, where you're literally like they say training to failure, but you literally are training to failure. Most of the time, you need a what's this? Something just popped up. You need all that rest period so you can actually get your mind right first of all, and then you need to save all your energy for that top set. And you will need like a spotter and stuff for those sets, because you're not just going until you feel, if I don't wrap this now, I'm going to drop the weight. You're going until you actually fail. When people I don't think a lot of people realize that when they see failure training, and a lot of people are thinking like, I'm not going to get a pump. That's another thing. Like the pump isn't going to make you grow just because you're doing 4 sets of 20 chest flies and your chest's like flying, or you do 1,000,000 push-ups. Doesn't mean that means I'm growing. Like the approach that you're going for, whether you're doing the heavy weight and you're giving yourself a lot of rest period, and you are able to lift more weight, so that over time your muscle has to adapt to this progressive overload sort of thing. And then obviously you still get your pump work in with your isolations in a way, but that's something a lot of people kind of get confused about. How long are your sessions taking roughly at the minute?
Depends. I think home workouts take longer because you're fanning around with like adjustable dumbbells and things, but legs can take, not including warm-ups, I take ages warming up, probably about like 2.5 hours. Pull sessions are pretty similar. I'm deadlifting, and a push session's probably like 1 hour and 45, 2 hours. So they do take a while, but then when you look at it, like I did legs yesterday, and it literally took me like 3 hours. And I look back at the session, and it was literally like 15 working sets. And that includes 3 sets of calves at the end. You know what I mean? It's just like,
it's crazy.
Like I take my time, like I really do take my time warming up. Not like after I've done like dynamic stuff at the start, but in terms of actually like warming up in the movement. Say like you're going for a top set on a deadlift for some, like for example, like say I'm hitting like a all out like 5 rep max in a 5 to 9 rep range. I'll do like 6 warm-up sets just leading up to that top set.
You need to though when you're lifting heavy.
And then you're taking a couple minutes rest in between those warm-up sets. It's not like I'm whacking one on, going straight into the other. So like building, sometimes like I'll spend like just like over an hour just deadlifting, and I'm doing 2 sets. You know what I mean? Like,
it takes you that long. It's not as if you can go like, say your top set's like 200 kilograms. It's not as if you can go 60 kilograms, 100 kilograms, 150 and 200. Like you need little increments in between kind of thing. Like first of all, you get injured, and you need to kind of get used to that movement as well. The more that you practice it as well.
Like, for example, like taking my deadlift, for example, like before I started dieting a couple months back, I got it up to like 240 kilo for 4 beltless. Decent. So then my warm-ups would be like 60, 100, 140, 160, 180, 200, 320. That's 7 warm-up sets before I've even done my top set. So like it takes like plus I found like especially when I was like pushing like my weight up like quite a lot, and then I was getting strong for me, like the stronger I was getting, like the more like time I was needing in between sets as well, in terms of recovery as well, just because it was taking like so much more out of me.
Yeah.
And then like my volume would come down as a result of that. Because like you'll probably know as well, like when you're getting stronger over time, like your volume just comes down just because you just can't physically recover from the amount of steps you were doing like previously. So
so I think that's a good point to make, because I think a lot of people, especially people who maybe just start in bodybuilding, might be, I want to do this high intensity approach, but there's two things, like your technique's not mastered at that point. And if you're only doing 2 working sets in an exercise, that's only 2 working sets. Like obviously maybe you probably need 1 warm up. If say your first time in the gym, or like you've been a few times and your top set on dumbbell bench press is like 15-20 kilograms, like you don't need to have 6 or 7 warm-up sets just to do 2 sets of 20. Like you'll be fine. Yeah, you just literally just probably a set with 10 kilograms, and you're probably fine to go into it, but you need to practice that. So I think if you are like a newbie, something with a little bit more volume, just so you can get the kind of the exercise kind of technique and stuff spot on. The more that you do it, the more your motor patterns and stuff, motor recruitment's going to be better and better. And then also, like I said before, you don't need that rest period, because it's not putting as much like taxing on your central nervous system if you're only lifting 20 kilograms compared to hundreds, what you can do down the line. But
if I like say I get like a online client, like a new client come to me, and like the training experience is pretty slim, and like, you know, they're quite new to weightlifting, but I won't put them on a top and back offset approach, because there's just no point, because like you said, execution's not going to be on point. Like if you're going for like one all out like 5 rep max on a back squat and your form shit, all I'm going to do is like hurt them essentially.
Yeah.
And then also, when you are new to training, you don't know where your failure point is at. Like you can say to someone, right, you've got 1 set, do 5 reps to failure, and they'll stop when it starts getting a little bit hard. They'll have like 4 or 5 reps left in the tank. So there's just no point in me giving them 2 working sets, because it's just going to do like fuck all. Yeah. So I put them on like a slightly more like linear approach to the working sets. So say like instead of like 1 top set, 1 back off set, say like 3 sets of like 6 to 8 or something, and then make sure they get the technique nailed down. They can actually learn to like take things to failure. And then once like they've progressed onto that, then you can be like, right, we can start maybe implementing something like that. But there's no point in doing it right at the start if they've no training experience, because it's just not going to work.
You're not going to, especially with the online coaching approach. Like it's different when you're in like one-to-one PT environment. You can obviously push them and you can obviously spot them, engage and stuff. But it's when I've trained clients and I say, right, 1 more rep, and they're absolutely fine and stuff like that. And it's like as if they get scared, like on a bench press. And it gets heavy and they just leave it on the chest. I'm like, you had about another 5 reps in you, but they don't want to push.
Or like when the concentric slightly slows down, then they rack it. I'm like, no, that's when the set starts. Like you've got way more left.
Or technique goes, like you'll see, especially when you learn the big compound moves, like you probably do have the strength, but your coordination isn't there. Like you can, if you haven't, especially even us, if we say transfer from doing like a barbell bench press to dumbbells, like after like a 3-month period, you shake it, your coordination, like everything's just lost, and you're like, and you might be like 5 or 10 kilograms down or a few reps down from what you know you're actually capable of doing, and then give it more time kind of thing. And then once you're like, you're more, what do you call it, motor patterns get there and stuff.
You adapt to the movement, like.
Yeah, you adapt to the movement, you'll get used to it, and then you'll be able to actually, like they say, I think it takes about 3 or 4 weeks for you to actually learn the movement. Like if you're doing a new movement, even once you're experienced, it takes actually 3 or 4 weeks to actually get the more like the movement properly, and then you can actually start activating and stimulating the muscle the way that you want to. So so if you're a newbie, I'd say a higher volume approach, but also getting a coach that understands that he doesn't want you going to do 50 sets or something. Progress it, like do the minimal,
like higher volume, and then they're just taking the piss.
Just taking it, because you're just wasting energy, and you're using like you're not going to be able to recover from
50 sets that are progressive in a session. Bollocks. Like you're just not doing it.
It's just not. It's just the rest of it's just pointless. But
it is like,
I know. So if you're new, you could get a coach. That's another thing. But we'll talk about your bodybuilding a bit. So you mentioned about competing. What was your plans? Obviously, we've already mentioned it off the podcast about your plans for competing and stuff.
Yeah, so I decided kind of like back end of last year that I was wanting to compete this summer, just because it would be the last year I could compete as a junior in like the UK DFBA, because I think the junior cut-off's like 23 and under. Then I turn 23 soon, so by the time the next year comes over, I'd be too old for juniors. So decided to get a coach. So I hired a coach in like October last year, just because I don't like, you should work if you're going to go into a prep and you're going to have a coach. I'm a firm believer that you should work with them for a few months before, like in the back end of like your off season, just so like they can learn your body, like kind of know what works for you, as opposed to just going, right, I'm 15 weeks out, I'm going to hire a coach, and then the first week he's learning me is during prep. So I hired a coach like for that, with the aim of competing in this June in like a qualifier for like men's physique. But obviously with the whole coronavirus thing, it was only like 3 weeks into prep, then they announced that the whole qualifiers were getting cancelled, and they were only doing like the finals like later in the year. But even now, like, we don't know if they're going to be on or not.
Yeah.
So I was just kind of like, right, I don't want to like elongate that for an extra like 3 months with like not even knowing if those shows are going to be on. It's probably not the best time to like diet down to that low levels of body fat, like weaken your immune system, or like, you know.
Yeah. Probably not the best time, just in case.
So I was like, I don't want to do it. Like, it's not going to be most optimal. And then you kind of think as well, like the amount of people, like with the gyms being shut as well, like training's not as optimal as you want it to be. Like, how many people are even going to compete? You know what I mean? Like, chances are 90% of people have sacked this year off straight away.
Yeah.
So I just ended up like, because I was going to be doing like an 18-week prep, only 3 weeks into it. So I just ended up dieting for another like 10 weeks just to kind of clean things up, get body composition into a better place before now, just like entering back into push-up. And then the plan is I'll either potentially try compete next year, or I'll take another year out and go 20 years now, 2022.
Yeah.
So 2021 next year. Just because obviously I know I would have had like a better chance like competing in the junior, but the step up to the men's is massive, because you know what I mean? Like, bodybuilding is one of them sports where it's different to everything else, and that you actually get better as you get older. So obviously you'll be competing against people in their 30s with like 20 years more training experience than you. So I know obviously the step up is going to be big, so I think I could do with an extra year of growing. And then with like the men's physique thing, it's definitely not like, if I do get the bug for competing, I want to keep doing it. It's probably not the category that I'd want to like stick with, but it's definitely one that's kind of like just kind of like ease yourself into it, if that makes sense. Like, if that, you know what I mean. But
so is it men's physique that you competing?
It was going to be men's physique, yeah.
Men's physique, yeah. That was a good thing that you touched on briefly there, like taking time out to actually put on size. So a lot of not just bodybuilding, but in general, people are like, oh, I want to put on size, but I want to be shredded at the whole time. Like, if you're a newbie and stuff, there is ways that you can kind of do it, but not optimally. Like, realistically, if you want to put on size, if your goal is to put on size, you want to put, like, you can't just bulk for 3 months. Like, realistically, it's going to be pointless. Like, taking a good full year out, probably minimum, is probably the best way to go. And you're going to have to accept the fact that you're going to be a little bit like, not chubby. So you can take it to the extremes and you can get a fat, and just like bodybuilders obviously take it to the extreme, eating like, well, how many calories are you on normally roughly when you're at the peak of your
at the back end, before I started dieting, I was on for the last few months like 5,500.
Yeah. So you're big, like, you 6'3", and how much were you weighing roughly?
6'3". I was 230 pounds at the time.
Yeah.
Now I'm like 210. So working my way back up. But so
it's heavy. It is a lot of food. I know, and especially like, well, I'm the same. I do kilograms. I'm like 100 kilograms. I'm 6'6", but I'm doing a lot of like, like it's for, like, I'm more sports performance as well, so I'm a bit of both sort of thing. But you need to eat a lot of calories. Like I kind of loosely track, and I know I'm minimum 4,000, like minimum. Yeah. Usually. Like, I'm probably, some days I could be up to 6,000. It depends how much I eat. Like, it can easily do it. Don't be afraid of eating food.
No, like everyone's different. Like, obviously, since me and you are quite tall, again, it's not the same for all tall people, but like when you are tall, chances are, you know, you hear the whole like hard gainer shit, but like chances are you're going to need more food. But yeah, it's harder, but then also like when you diet down, it does. Yeah, like if you're going to be going to those like really extreme levels of body fat, your calories are going to have to come pretty low. But like if you take that time building your calories up, the first like initial stages of your diet are going to be a lot easier, because you can afford to diet on a lot higher calories. Like, for example, like in my most recent diet, I took out, like, we did like 12, 13 weeks, and I took off like 25 pounds, and my training day food didn't go below like 3,700, 3,800
That's
for the
still a
whole
decent
time,
amount.
because I spent that time pushing up the food. So like, it really didn't have to come down too much. But obviously, if you're going to get like stage lean, it's going to have to come.
Yeah, go all the way down. Yeah, I know it's a different level. I know. So in terms of like bulking, like we're not just saying go and eat 5,000 calories straight away when you've been eating 2.5 kind of thing. So like, how do you kind of obviously taper it? Explain the kind of process and like tapering the food up slowly and gradually.
Yeah, so it's all about kind of like assessing body composition as you go through, because especially when you're younger, I think like young lads are really guilty of like chasing scale weight. Say they're like 60 kilo, they're like, all right, I will get up to fucking 80 kilo for no reason. Like, you get up to that 80 kilo, what satisfaction are you getting out of it? You know what I mean? Like, you can just look like a fat piece of shit.
Potato,
and you've gone up 20 kilo like far too fast. So it really is just a case of like, it's hard to like give genetic guidelines on like rate of gain, when to like increase calories, but as a rough kind of guide, in and around like 1% body weight a month kind of going on, but like everyone's different. Always assessing like visual factors, like, you know, if your like body weight's coming up, body fat, like body composition still in a decent place, you can kind of afford to keep pushing food up a little. Like, especially like, it's kind of hard when it comes to pushing food, because if body weight's still kind of, maybe not like, say body weight's not moved in a while, but body composition's decent and training performance is still good, then I don't really see the need to increase food just for the sake of like adding scale weight, even though scale weight does need to come up over time. But when things like scale weight stalled for a while, not just for like 2 days, that you've not gained weight for 2 days, like, you know what I mean? It's longer than that.
Yeah.
Like a few weeks if you've not seen scale weight, gym performance is like a bit like not great, and like visually you're still kind of the same, then you can be like, right, I can push food up a little. Again, not saying like 1,000 calories, but maybe like, again, everyone's different depending on how much food, but like 200-300 calorie jump. And then again, do the exact same thing, like reassess gym performance, visuals, scale weight, take all that kind of into account. Appetite as well, Steffi's digestion, something that has to be looked at when you're pushing up. Like if you're pushing 5,000 calories, things have stalled, but your digestion's like in the gutters. There's no point in like pushing up again just for the sake of it. Like, you really need to kind of sort that out before like going up again. So
that's when you see people do like the mini cuts and stuff. Like, I've watched a few Josh Bridgman. He even done like a 24-hour fast, didn't he? Just to kind of help you digest and stuff. Like, I've done intermittent fasting and stuff, and when I'm eating a lot of food, I do find that like there's get to a point where like you start bloating and like things just on that you can tell. Just doing like a little bit of fasting, even just for like a week or two kind of thing, just to kind of back off the calories, it'll help massively, and then your appetite comes back and you can just push the calories again.
I'm a big fan of doing that on a rest day. Like, I don't like intermittent fast or anything, but I'll always like, since like I'm pounding like carbohydrates on a training day, on a rest day, I'll push my first meal back to like 10, 11, maybe even a little bit later, depends on like kind of where my calories are. And then I'll always have that first meal on a rest day as like a pro fat meal as well, just to give me a little bit of a break, even though it's not long, but just a bit of a break from carbohydrates. So just even though it's not like a long fast, it's still just a little break from kind of just like pounding yourself with food like 24/7. So
so what sort of, when you're bulking, what are your kind of sources of carbohydrates or extra? That's a lot of questions that I get asked, like, what foods do I need to eat to kind of bulk up? Is it like just smashing donuts and stuff, or is there certain some people still don't know kind of the best things to go for?
It's a classic. It's like, it's one of them things where, especially when you're pushing up and say you do struggle gaining weight and your calories need to get quite high, you need to kind of have that balance between like so-called, I hate the word, but like healthy, kind of like nutrient dense carbohydrate sources, and then also like your simpler kind of sugary foods. So I always kind of like to have a balance. Plus, when you are like in like a surplus of calories that you've got tons to play with, you might as well take advantage of being able to fit these kind of foods into your nutrition. You know what I mean? You can't just be a robot and eat sweet potato 6 meals every single day. It's like, there's no way you're getting in like 700 grams of carbs from sweet potato.
Unless you eat like 3 kilograms, you know what I mean? 3 kilograms of rice or something.
Yeah, I'll tend to, my main ones will be like bagels, white rice, sometimes pasta, like wraps, squares bars, oats, granola, jam, honey, fruit, breakfast cereals. Like, I'm a big fan of them. Like post-workout, like kind of rice-based breakfast cereals. And I really kind of stick to that. Like crumpets as well, like just kind of a balance between like healthy and then like simpler carbs. Just because like when your carbs are getting like 900 grams of carbs, that you do need to, it's just easy to get like 50 grams of carbs in a meal by just putting honey on top of it, you know what I mean? As opposed to another 200 grams of like sweet potato or something. So
I know sometimes you just can't stomach that sort of food, like a kilogram of potato on your plate. Like it's easier just to have like half the portion and have like a bagel with some jam on instead.
Yeah,
like,
it's just that's it. Like have like something on the side of that meal.
It's a good little treat as well.
Instead of having like 600 grams of like white potato, have like 400 and then like 2 Squares bars or something with it. Just like little things like that, just to kind of make it a bit more enjoyable.
And also just find what digests best for you, because like, there's no point of saying like have bagels and stuff if you like say gluten doesn't sit well with you or whatever reason, because there's different foods sit well with different people, and obviously you just need to find a balance. Like I would never say to a client like, right, you need to have like 2 bagels. I'd just say like just make sure you hit these like carbohydrates
at 90 grams of carbs or whatever, and 2 bagels.
Yeah, just hit that. That's what I do with a lot of my clients, just kind of give them for each meal like macro goals rather than saying, I'll give them an example of what they can have, but like give them like the goals, and then as long as you're eating, you know, not having like pizza and some meat from Tesco that's, I don't know, like, you know, the processed meat and stuff.
60% chicken, like.
Yeah, and like, I don't know, just as long as you're getting a balanced diet, that's the main thing.
Yeah,
100%. So moving on, in terms of nutrition, actually, I was going to talk about pre-intra, so they call it the peri-workout window nutrition. So a lot of people don't really know about the benefits and stuff and how to kind of set it out. So in terms of like your pre-workout meal, what do you have, and kind of where, like how close to training do you have it? I know people like have different preferences on things like that.
Yeah. So like you said, everyone's like super like individual in terms of like what they can have, like how long they need to wait before like training and that. But I always kind of give like a rough guideline to clients and things like that. But like you're saying, peri-workout window, like pre-intra post, like to situate like a good amount of carbohydrates in all of those meals of your daily amount, obviously for performance and recovery benefits in terms of training. With like pre-workout, I kind of find anywhere from like 1 to 1.5 hours like sits well with me, like from having my pre-workout meal to training. I used to like eat my pre-workout meal and train like 10 minutes later, like back in the day.
I used to do back in the day as well.
You're just like bloated like straight away. So that's kind of what I prefer. But I say to clients, if you need like 2.5 hours, that's cool. If you can train, like even when they say, oh yeah, I'm ready to go after 45 minutes, I still kind of say like leave it a little bit, just because you'll
start training and you'll start noticing and stuff, and you don't. There's nothing worse than training. You feel like food's coming up your stomach, and it's not ideal.
Yeah. And then in terms of like carb sources pre-workout, again, everyone's different. Like some people prefer like high GI carb sources, you know, so ones that are going to digest a little bit quicker. Other people can't do that because they end up like just feeling a bit hungry, so they'll go for like low GI, like slower digesting kind of carbohydrates. Personally, I prefer more of like a quicker digesting carb pre-workout. So for like the most time I can remember, I usually just kind of stick with white rice, very bro, like chicken and rice pre-workout meal, but it just sits well with me. So obviously pre-workout meal, again, can't give like, oh, you need to have this amount of carbohydrate, because it depends on like the individual. I typically won't go over like 100 grams carbs pre. I usually kind of stick it around there. But if calories are really high and I feel like I can stomach it, then I will. Obviously, we're looking to get in like a bolus of protein in that meal as well, like in around that minimum like 25 grams from a complete protein source. And then I also like to put in a bit of dietary fat in that meal as well. Again, the amount depends, but I'll around like 10 to 15 grams added dietary fat just to help blunt and like slow down the absorption, digestion.
Especially if you're having a lot of carbs in that meal, you can
fat source. You'll be hungry like by the time you come to train. So just kind of like, you know what I mean? You're not hungry when you train with that little bit of added fat. So.
Yeah, I always tell people though, don't stress too much about the pre-workout. If you're on higher calories and stuff, 100% get the food in because it's there. But your muscles have got loads of glycogen stores anyway. I think they can store, I can't remember, it's like at least 300, I can't remember what it is, and then there's so much in the liver, and then there's like 100 and something in the liver that it can store. So you can store, as long as you have like for me, I train a lot of the time. If I'm training like earlier in the morning, I'll train fasted, but have a very decent sized meal the night before, like at least 100 grams of carbs and stuff, like with my last meal, like 2 hours before bed or something like that. So don't worry about it too much. And then we'll move on to kind of intra and post. I feel are the two more important ones overall. But I'll let you kind of, what's your intra?
Yeah, I am actually a big like fan of intras. Also, I don't give it to like all clients because, you know, if you've got like general population who trains for like an hour and they're not really that arsed, I'm not going to say, I get some EAAs and some cyclic extra in you. But
Yeah.
no, I do like Intra Workout. I do keep mine quite basic though. I literally just stick to highly branched cyclic dextrin. Obviously, we're wanting that carbohydrate source. So cyclic dextrin, my go-to, obviously, like high molecular weight, low osmolarity. So it's passing through the digestive system really like easily. Like you don't have to draw like blood from the muscles into the digestive tract to digest during your training. So you've got very little bloat from that. Because the mistake a lot of people will make is they'll, like when you're new to intra workouts, they'll see, oh, I can get 5 kilogram of maltodextrin or dextrose for like a tenner. But why would I pay £25 for a kilo of cyclodextrin? But like I remember I did that with maltodextrin, like fucking like my stomach was an absolute bit. Like 80 grams of it, like like you're bloated like mid-session. So like stick to cyclodextrin. It's just easier. And then I just pop my creatine in there as well. Obviously, it doesn't matter where you put your creatine. It's just I remember to put it in there.
Yeah.
Obviously, you see a lot of people using like essential amino acids, so EAAs. I personally like. I think it depends on how serious the person wants to take it and also like disposable income. I personally don't take them because I think if you're getting like a bolus of complete protein in your pre-workout meal and then in your post-workout meal, I really don't see the need to use an EAA. I'd probably only buy them, well, use them if I was getting them for free. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like, if you want to use them, you can. I'll also tend to put like, if I remember, like a gram of pink salt in my intra as well. And then you can also look at things like, again, depending on how serious you want to take it, like electrolytes, taurine, you can add in there as well. But I personally like to keep it quite simple. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, 2 points. The part about the salt, I do the same thing. So I'm either like Himalayan sea salt, but I've just got some, I've seen, you know, Totem Fitness, you heard of them, but they've given away like free samples. And my girlfriend's dad, he got some at work, so because he's a paramedic, so he got some from the NHS. And I think they're getting loads of freebies at the minute, obviously. Yeah, so I got loads of, he said, I don't like these, they just taste like salt, but it's literally just like, it's just like sea salt. So I think it's just like potassium, sodium, magnesium, all the stuff, and calcium, and stuff that you need. Just let you tip that in. So I have that as well. To kind of talk a little bit about the benefits of that, which is obviously you're sweating a lot during training and stuff like that, but we'll talk a bit more about the help in terms of muscular contraction and stuff like that with obviously the added salts. Because I know, I'm not an expert on it. You did biology, didn't you? Uni, so.
Yeah,
I was hoping you were an expert on it.
But I'm not like, we didn't really do salt into workout at uni, you know what I mean? So, but no, like you said, it's just basic. Like it's not essential. Like you said, muscular. Like everyone thinks, oh, salt pump. You know what I mean? It is true.
Yeah.
Like it's going to help muscular contractions, pump blood flow. Obviously, hydration. Like you're sweating out. You know, you're losing a lot of salt. It's like you're sweating out during your training, so it's just a case of like replenishing things like that. But I don't. Yeah,
it's just
not
that little thing.
You need to do it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I think it's good for like, especially if you're like an endurance athlete or football. We used to take like electrolytes and stuff a lot pre-season when it's hot and we're doing a lot of running because you're sweating that much, and a lot of people get cramp and stuff when you dehydrate and you don't have the salt in your system. Take it in. So I recommend them in the summer if you're training quite intense, but they're not essential. And then obviously we're talking about essential amino acids as well. I'm exactly the same as you in terms of you don't really need them. If you're getting a decent protein meal, like say even like 3 hours before training, and then you get them on a decent protein meal 2 hours post training or something like that, you'll be fine. I take them sometimes for 2 reasons. One, because it tastes nice. I've got like a watermelon flavour, which tastes fat nice.
They do taste nice. Like
my sort of dextrin doesn't have any flavour to it as well. I've just bought plain.
It's annoying. They stopped doing the flavoured ones, like on like my protein powders and stuff.
Yeah, I get bulk powders one. They don't do flavoured ones, so I have my watermelon stuff with my creatine and my dextrin. But I don't
put it in there, like.
Yeah, so that tastes nice. And then I do it sometimes when I train fasted. Obviously, also you're not fasted if you take an essential amino acids in the morning as well.
You're not work out for that. You're not fasted.
Yeah, you're not fasted anymore. But I take them in the morning if I'm training without it. It's more for my own conscience. It's like Yeah, it's like the old school thing. Like, you're going to lose muscle if you train fasted in the morning. It's just there's studies saying it's beneficial to train fasted completely. Like, there's Rich Froning and Josh Bridges, who are CrossFit athletes. They train completely fasted in the morning, and they're obviously fine because they're ridiculous. So there's probably that little slight advantage of taking them fasted. But for me,
like I've trained fasted a few times, and when I do, like, it's technically not fasted because I'm sipping on an Intra like throughout the whole time. I know what you mean. It's just for like peace of mind, knowing, right, I've got a stream of essential amino acids going into when I'm training. I'm not gonna go catabolic.
That's the thing. It stops you going catabolic. That's what you think. I know, and then it stops you kind of worrying about, like, right, as soon as I finish training, I need to go and run and get a meal downers. Which we'll talk about as well. So post workout, what's your kind of how long after training do you have it, and what do you kind of have?
Yeah, so the classic, like, again, when you first start training, you've just finished, boom, straight in, go pound your post-workout meal. But like, you really want to be leaving it. Like, I personally leave it anywhere from like 30 minutes to an hour, usually kind of around like 45 minutes after I finish training, just because obviously, as you know, like when you're training, you're in that parasympathetic state, like you're in a stressed state. Like, the last thing your body's really like worrying about doing is digesting food. So it's kind of good to just kind of chill out for a while, get yourself more into that parasympathetic state. Just let everything kind of calm down. Did I say parasympathetic state the first time?
I think you said, you meant you're in a sympathetic state when you're training. And then
I just said that. I feel like I just said parasympathetic twice.
Repeat
so obviously, when you're training, you're in that sympathetic state. You're in a stressed environment. Like, your body's really not wanting to be. It's not like prioritizing digesting food. So it's good to kind of wait, get yourself, like, let your heart rate come down, get yourself into that parasympathetic, calmer state. You're in a better position, just like absorb and assimilate nutrients. So yeah, kind of in around like half an hour to an hour. And then I'll tend to, like, this is what I'd like to, like, with myself and with clients, have like the most heavy carbohydrate meal of the day. So like the most amount of carbohydrates in a meal, I'll tend to put it post-workout, and I'll stick to like simple form of carbohydrates. So things that like digest like really easily with me, because obviously, like, you're not wanting to be, I would never sit and have like sweet potato or something like that after I train. I just want something that's going to digest nice and fast. So I'll usually have like breakfast cereal, so something like Cocoa Pops or something like that, and then like crumpets and jam, or like, all them like kind of flavored rice cakes, things like that. Like, it's a good time to like utilize like getting a good amount of simple sugars. Protein, obviously, we're looking, again, bolus of protein. I tend to just stick to, obviously, everyone's like, oh yeah, you need a protein shake post-workout. You obviously don't. You can just have like chicken or something.
Yeah.
But I just like to have whey just because it's easy, and then I'll tend to like put on my cereal anyway. And then I keep fats low in the post-workout meal as well, like preferably below like 10 grams, just so obviously that's kind of the window we're not wanting to blunt or slow down the digestion of the carbohydrates kind of then. So something that you can get in, a big bolus of carbs that's not going to bloat you too much, digest nice and fast. So
I like a post-workout cereal protein shake.
What's
the cereal at the minute? What's the cereal of choice?
Well, at the moment, it's either like Cocoa Pops or like a bit boring, but like Rice Krispies, just because my appetite's still like a little bit high after finishing dieting. So obviously, like, rice-based, you're getting like a ton.
Yeah.
When like I have no appetite, like in the gutters, eating 5,500 calories, it'll be like the chocolate Weetabix minis, because you literally get like 150 gram of carbs for like 3 spoonfuls.
I've had them before. Like, I fill my bowl up and it's like just in there. I'm just like, where's the food? Like, where's the calories?
The serving size, it's like 5 of them. It's like
I know, it's ridiculous. They're nice then though as well.
Something like Frosties as well though.
Yeah.
Safe,
I've been having the I went to is it B&M where you are? The Shetland, no, never mind.
Co-op and Boots, and
that's about it. I'll say the B&M, they have like Lucky Charms. They have like I say the fake, the snide versions.
Box, like.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but it's like in 100 grams, like 45 grams of sugar. And it's like 85 grams of carbs, 45 grams of sugar. So I've been having like a little bit of them. I'm trying not to have too much, because that's high sugar.
It's one of them when even though like I'm not arsed, like I don't, like, people always like when I put up like I'm having like 200 grams of cereal or something, it's like, oh, you're not arsed about the sugar. I'm like, no, I don't really give a shit. But you still kind of like, I wouldn't have 200 grams of Frosties, I don't think, so my teeth would just be absolutely, like, done, you know what I mean? Like,
it's
just a
a
bit,
ball of
still
sugar.
kind of balance it a little bit and not take the piss with it, like.
Yeah, don't worry about sugar too much as well. I think there's a lot of studies done saying if you're like a healthy individual, like sugar intake, as long as you're not like literally taking sugar out of the bag into your mouth, you should be fine. You should be all right.
See, when people freak out about fruit, because fructose is like, it's fruit. I mean, come on, like, it's.
I know. Just eat fruit, it's good. But last little thing we'll touch on, because we've been going for quite a bit there. So we're both tall lads, which is, you're like 6'3", I'm like 6'5" and a bit. I say a bit. I like rounding it up to 6'6". I'll say 6'6".
Yeah, I'm probably like 6'2" a bit.
Yeah, I'm not that tall, but so our training, like, you'll have to adapt that training a little bit. Like me as well, I've had a lot of injuries. What are some of the key things kind of from your head that you can think of that you have to adapt? Because obviously in terms of squatting, benching, it's an absolute nightmare for us just because our limbs are so long. Deadlifting, not so bad, but squatting, kind of like, what are the things that you kind of do to adapt your training?
Well, I actually don't, like, I would if I had like a gym, I had access to a gym, like kitted out with, you know, all these like machines, etc. But the gym I train at up here, it's very, very basic. So like in terms of machines for pressing, don't have any. We've got like a shoulder press machine, but it's not good, so I don't use it. And we've got a Smith machine. So, and then in terms of legs, we don't have like a pendulum squat or a V squat or anything. Like, you've got a barbell, a safety bar, we got a hack as well, and a leg press. So like, I do have to kind of stick to the basics, so I don't have the luxury of kind of altering my training to it. Like, if I had the choice, I wouldn't back squat, just because, like we were talking about before, like got like never ending femurs, like my legs are so long, like a 3 second eccentric for me, like it takes me like 8 seconds to get down into the hole. I'm just not that built for squats. It doesn't do much for like my quads. I would much favor like one rotation being, say, like a hack squat and the other rotation being like a pendulum or something. But I do one back squat or safety bar and then one hack squat. So I kind of have to do it. The same with pressing. Like, we don't have any machines, so it's either flat bench, incline bench, flat dumbbell, incline dumbbell. You know what I mean? So I've just kind of got to work. I've just kind of got to work around it. But what I would say is that, like, by doing that and just being like really consistent with like the big three, because obviously, like, you know, like we know, like, you don't need to do like the so-called big three and like a back squat, deadlifts, bench. Like, you should be doing variations, but you don't need to do them. But obviously, like, I'm not that suited to them. But since I don't have access to the equipment, I've just kind of been consistent with them, and then I ended up getting okay at them. In terms of okay at them.
Yeah, you're strong. To be fair, you are very strong. Like, I've just started squatting for the first time, and like, I'm still trying to figure out like where to have my feet and stuff. Like, do I put my toes out so much? Because I found if I have a wider stance and my toes pointing out a bit more, I can get a bit more depth. But I feel like that takes away all of the kind of, I call it stress, like on the quads kind of thing. I feel like my adductors and my glutes are just firing so much more than my quads. And then I try narrow stance, and my angle ability isn't actually too bad. Like, it's not it for how long my legs are, it is decent, but it needs to be even better to actually for me to be able to squat deep with a narrow stance. So that's another thing I'll touch up on, like mobility for a taller lad. We've talked about before the podcast. You were like, I don't do mobility.
But like, like in terms of like my squat, like obviously it takes ages to get deep enough, and like I just can't go any deep. Like, I get like maybe like just below parallel, but like for me, like everyone goes on about nowadays kind of like the trendy terms like active range of motion. But like for me, I can't go any deeper. Like, so like I've just kind of, I did do some sort of mobility, like in time, not like mobility, but just like I like before legs, like I take ages warming up my like groin, hip flexor and that, just to make sure that I can get depth. Obviously, like being tall, it's not great for squatting, but like I said, I don't have much choice. But like being like consistent with it and like doing it for ages, I ended up getting up like, it's not strong, but it's like it's decent, and it's better than like when my squat was only like 5 kilo more than my bench.
Mate, that's me at the minute. When I first started squatting, I think like I don't know if I could even push like 130. I never tried my squatting, to be fair. I think next week I'm going to try one rep max. So I'll see what I can get.
Not like max now squat.
No, and the thing is as well, we talked about it on Instagram. Like, I'm preferring front squats over back squats at the minute. I just feel like the suit, I don't know why. I think the upright posture and stuff it feels a lot more comfortable. I don't know why. I don't know if it's me because I've had a slip vertebra in my back since I was 12 and I had problems with it. So I don't know if I just feel like mentally feel more confident because I'm more upright. Or I don't know.
Yeah.
But another thing I've seen you started doing it a little bit is the little heel wedge when you squat.
Yeah.
We talked about that as well. So explain.
Yeah. So like, as like we were saying, that my ankle mobility is shy. So I kind of like fannied around with like squat shoes, you know, like the Olympic lifting shoes with like that elevated heel.
Yeah.
Just because like when you've got the elevated heel, you've got more of a chance of getting a bit deeper, more increased range of motion.
Mm-hmm.
Not a big fan of the squat shoes, so I got one of those like just like a 7-pound yoga wedge off Amazon just to have my heels elevated. And I'm quite a big fan of it. I've only been using it for like a month, but it's helping. And then plus I find I can like, again, like you were saying, you don't like using the term, but like focus a lot more on my quad, because it allows me to like create more knee flexion and drive my knees over my toes. And I've been feeling like a lot better. Like I've actually been getting a pump on my quads after a set of back squats, for example, as opposed to like just like feeling nothing. So, but I think with you, like you're saying, obviously like back squats, that you're still quite new to them. It's one of them things that once you kind of keep doing them consistently, like you will eventually get more comfortable at doing them. But everyone's hit that point where you're benching like 80 kilo and you're squatting 90.
Yeah, I know. It's not ideal.
Like squatting 90 for like a triple, and my bench was like 80 for a triple.
Yeah, I know. It's great. That's the same as me. Like at the minute, it's just ridiculous. But like I've literally never back squat before. It's been a lot of split squats, like rear foot elevated split squats. I was big on, just because I feel because of the injuries I've had, and also for anybody who's playing football, like for pretty much full time, like 5-6 days a week, I'm not big on loading the spine in season. So like back squats or anything. I'm big on like dumbbell split squats or trap bar deadlifts is a big one. I'm big on, like, for anybody as well. Just because in season, because the added load, the amount of, especially for goalkeepers, if you're training on like the plastic stuff, the AstroTurf, like your spine's taking a thumping anyway. And I think
at the end of the day, like if you're playing football 5-6 days a week, chances are that's your main priority over the gym anyway. Yeah. It's not like because if your gym's the main priority, you're not going to be playing football 6 times a week, are you? You know what I mean? No, the football, 100%. The gym will just be supplementing the football, so there's no point in, like you say, trashing yourself and then your performance shy. Yeah, so
the gym's just there for like prehab and just maintenance more than anything. And obviously, when the season comes, I'll have to back up. It's been nice, obviously, during lockdown and stuff, just being able to actually hammer like loads of leg training, just because I've got that time to. Still doing conditioning stuff as well, but no, it's been it's good to get under the bar for the first time, because it's I used to be scared of it. I was a little pussy when I was
a little pad for your neck on the bar.
Yeah, so I'm not doing that. I'll never. Yeah, that's another point actually to make. The pad for your neck is not. Don't use it on your neck. The only thing that's good for is hip thrusts.
Just don't use it.
Just don't.
I think it's the mistake that people make when they first start squatting. I did it as well. It's that you put the bar right on top of your neck and it pinches, and people are like, "Oh, it's so sore." It's like, well, no, it's not. Once you learn that you actually just kind of rest.
Yeah, it's because people are like sitting on it, like they're holding it like that, and they're not engaging any sort of
on the neck skin, and it's like pinching. I'm like, well, yeah, of course that's going to hurt. But then, like for example, like when I first started squatting, I probably found that more painful than when I was able to, like when I squatted like 200 kilo. Like, I didn't feel it sore at all, just on your back. It feels heavy, don't get me wrong, it feels fucking heavy, but it's not sore, you know what I mean? So
it gets easier. But no, I think we've covered everything there, mate. But last thing to finish off, the 3 questions. I don't know if you've had a think about them, because obviously I'll give you a heads up with them.
Oh, I should have thought about them more.
Yeah, the 3 questions. So the first one, 3 people you'd like to invite round for dinner, past or present.
Tough one, this.
Very tough.
I was trying to think about people in the past, and I said, there's no one I can really think of. So David Attenborough, he's an absolute legend.
Yeah.
Tell you all the stories. Oh, it's hard, this. David Attenborough. Conor McGregor. Just because
he'd be
Conor
interesting.
McGregor. And torn between the last 2. Either someone like
you can have 4 of them. Oh, right.
Jeff
Bezos,
he's so minted. Just like ask him about business
pick his
stuff.
brains, yeah.
And then someone like Ronaldo or Messi, just because they're the best in the world at football, and it's cool.
Yeah, it'd be cool to say like, oh yeah, Ronaldo was around my house the other day. That's decent.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
So decent. Decent. Well, I've four them. You can have. In fact, you can't have Ronaldo or Messi. So you're gonna have to pick Ronaldo or Messi.
Ronaldo, because I don't think Messi speaks English.
Yeah. Actually, to be fair, I don't even know if he does. And Ronaldo loves the gym as well. That's a little plus. You could probably train with Ronaldo after. And then next question: 3 people you'd want to train with.
Yeah, I'll try and keep this like instead of going, oh yeah, Ronnie Coleman, Dorian Yates.
Yeah.
I'll try and keep it a bit different. So Jordan Peters, again, bit basic, but you know the intensity the guy trains at, I'd be sick to just like witness that. Chris Bumstead, because everyone wants Chris Bumstead.
Mr. Olympia, isn't he?
That's the thing. I don't want to like train with like IFBB pros. It doesn't really interest me, but something like Bumstead, and then even though he's not like a big, probably like, someone like AJ Morris, even though he's not like a big like IFBB pro or something, you know, he's like big in the natural bodybuilding scene, trains hard. So I think someone like AJ Morris.
He does a lot of volume as well, doesn't he? He does quite a bit of volume for a natural athlete. I swear he does quite a bit.
He does a decent amount, but he still does like that high intensity.
The high intensity. Yeah, because I've just seen it was I think Josh Bridgman Josh Bridgman done a video or something about AJ Morris. He said he trained with him once. He trained like a leg day with him, and he said the volume that he done just killed him. But obviously, a quick point to me: everyone's volume threshold and stuff's completely different. So you've got to try and find what works best for you. And then the last thing, one thing you'd say to yourself 5 years ago.
Tough on this.
Very tough one.
I'd probably link it to the whole thing about food and like, just don't be weird and like be scared of eating like dietary fat or like unhealthy foods or something. You know what I mean? Just like be way more relaxed with your approach to nutrition. Like I said, don't be scared of like doing things like that, because it definitely like didn't ruin it, but it definitely took away the fun for me in like my first couple of years at university, because it was just like playing with my mind a lot. So, and obviously like your university years are meant to be like the best years of your life, and you don't get them back. So yeah, just be a bit more relaxed with your food and just kind of enjoy yourself more. So that would be what I'd say. Like,
decent, mate. Spot on. No, that's been great. Do you want to shout out your like social medias or anything where people can find you?
Yeah, so easiest place to probably get me would be Instagram, and it's just at Andrew Goodlad 97, all lowercase, and then that's really it. I don't work with like Twitter or anything, so
yeah, I'm the same, mate. I deleted Twitter like 5 years ago, and I'm just not interested.
Never had it.
Not interested in it, but no, that's been spot on, mate. Thanks for coming on.
No, thanks for having me on, man. I enjoyed it. It was good.
Cheers, mate.